everyone, and welcome back to our second Bundesliga and A-League match week review. We had a massive one to kick off this series last week with the Der Klassiker and a couple of other big games. And we've got maybe not as many big games this week, but there's been some big results across both the Bundesliga and the A-League. And I won't waste any time with a 12-minute intro because United didn't beat Liverpool, like they did last week. We beat Brighton, which was just as big as all United fans will know. They've been living rent-free in our head for the last few seasons, so good to finally beat them at Old Trafford and make it 3 wins in a row. But I'm not really going to go on and on about United. We're just going to dive straight into this one to not bore you guys with a pointless intro this time. So whenever you're ready, Ben, let's just take it away. We'll go straight into the Bundesliga with, I guess, you know what? Well, you know what? Let's just do a quick pleasantries out of the way. How was your week, Ben?
Yeah, good, Chester. Great to see you again. Looking forward to the review. Some great games over the weekend in both the Bundesliga and the A-League. I saw a great A-League game Friday night. We'll cover that as we go along.
Always get to the good games.
I was just going to say, I think once again I got the pick of the bunch. So in our country anyway.
Oh, I don't know, that 1-0 win for Auckland against Wanderers on Saturday at 3. That was quite a game. I can tell you that was one hell of a game of football.
Well, good to see them packing out the Mount Smart Stadium again for another season, and Corrick gets the home win first up. But we'll get into it. So the opening Bundesliga game was a Saturday morning game. So Bremen beating Union Berlin 1-0.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty tightly contested game, this one. So both teams really well organised. Not a whole lot in the game overall in terms of chance creation, clearly. But Bremen, I felt, did just have that little extra bit of quality. Schmidt, Boniface, and Gruel really, showing their wares, in the contest. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought pretty much the same, obviously. 1-0 win for Bremen, saying much about that as one. I thought a little bit disappointing from Union's side, solid performance at home against Gladbach last week. Once again, they've just struggled on the road then, again, in my honest opinion. As good as their home form and as difficult as they are to break down at home a lot of the time, the away form is an issue. I think it's their third away defeat already this season in 8 games. Not 8 games in away, but 8 games overall, obviously. They've only lost one other game, that was at home, so it's only 4 defeats so far. They've lost half of their games, and half of the games that they've lost, or more than half of the games they've lost, have been away from home. There was a big issue, I felt, in this game, though, with chance creation. Just not that many of any clear goal-scoring opportunities that were created. Ollie Burke had a shot early in the first half. Ansa had a shot in the first half. Skarka ran around, looked quite busy in the second half, but again, just like the rest of the forwards, didn't really get much going his way. They just couldn't get in the good goal-scoring positions and really found it hard to find enough space in the box amongst that tightly packed Bremen defence, and especially that partnership of Friedel and Amos Pieper, who once again just rock solid at the back for Bremen. And then they got Mio Backhouse, the young keeper behind them, who's been in really good form in the last few weeks as well. That's a good triangle, basically. I like that's going on there for Bremen, and looks like they're trying to aim to be quite defensively solid this season, and those 3 are really kind of setting that foundation for them. So if they can stay fit and they can stay in good form, it could really help them potentially make a push for European spots, which they've been quite short of for a while now. So for a long time, in fact. So yeah.
Well, I mean, Piper and Friedel, rock solid at the back for Bremen. Backhouse was obviously...
I just realised I called him Piper. Sorry, people. I know his name is Pieper.
I'm sure we've got the whole season to get pronunciations right. The more we watch and review these games, but Backhouse behind them, and his form's been great. You mentioned that triangle as well, and the keeper looking strong with that defensive unit could really help Bremen win a lot of points this season on the road and at home as well.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, let's not take anything away from Union. Their strength is defence, and even though they went down narrowly in this, throughout the match they were very strong defensively as well. But the away form is a big issue for them. They're fantastic at home, but they need to pick up more points away from home if they're going to try and make a push for Europe like they did almost a couple of seasons ago, if you remember. So yeah, great at home, but just the big takeaway from Union is this: is just once again not enough in the tank to get them results that they need to get away from home if they're going to keep up in that conversation as the season goes on. Because you can't win every game at home, and if you're not picking up points away from home, then you're not really going to get yourself above that European line potentially. Especially with the amount of teams that are quite closely compact and probably going to be compact as the season goes on in around the top four and just outside it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly Union have had a few really good seasons, and not quite in that sort of stage where they can really press for Europe at the moment, like some of the other teams who we'll get to as part of the review. But the next game was interesting. So Hamburg going 1-0 down to Wolfsburg, and Wolfsburg haven't had the best start to the season, but they picked up the 3 points on the road. Yeah, Hamburg dominant again, but another defeat. Wolfsburg, again with the pronunciations, actually picking up their first win since the opening day, and that was what 6-7 weeks ago now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But they certainly needed the win, no question about that. But the performance is going to be in question. The Stuttgart game was a really good example of that, where they just couldn't maintain a decent spell of possession. The long balls up the pitch were the way to go. Using Dargim as the out ball to try and get some attacking flow. And what did you make of this game?
Yeah, again, I just feel sorry for Hamburg fans. I know you don't with the team you support, but as a neutral on that, I do because 2 weeks in a row and a couple of other times earlier on in this season before we started doing these reviews, some damn good performances from the team who've just come up, showing that they belong in the Bundesliga, and we haven't missed them for all the time they've been out of the league. But they're not winning games, and that's why I feel sorry for them. I look at that attack, and I just think, maybe Königsdörfer is not quite at the races all the time, and missed a penalty, of course, in this game. Poor penalty as well. Just to touch on that, just pretty dreadful penalty. But Dompe again looks like a threat out wide. Ryan Philippi again didn't have the final product, but out wide on the ball, pacey, looks a threat. The midfield, Albert Sambi Lokonga has been a revelation of a signing for them in terms of how they balance that midfield out and stuff. I just think, these strong performances from Hamburg deserve results that should be going their way. Wolfsburg, yeah, they won, but similar, as you said, similar to that Stuttgart game, another poor performance. They can take any win. They'll take any win they get at this point, especially their first since the opening day. But the questionable thing needs to be the performance again. Dominated on the ball. When Stuttgart did it, you thought, okay, yeah, fair enough. They're good this season. Hamburg, they've had good, but then you think newly promoted team, maybe you should be showing a little more. But again, I don't see it with this system with Wolfsburg. Long out balls. I mean, Dagin played well. You got the goal, of course. Good finish, cut inside, good finish. But going forward this season, if this is going to be the way they're playing, then it's going to be a proper relegation battle potentially on the cards for them. Despite the fact that they've picked up a big win here for them, there's no service to Vind up front. Jonas Vind just looks isolated out of the game. Eriksson, he got on the ball a little more today than he did against Stuttgart, but again, he's not the same Christian Eriksen that he was, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and that's kind of apparent. As a United fan, obviously, having played for us for the previous few seasons, I'm aware of that. Still a good player, but maybe they need to find a way to get him on the ball and try and implement him more into this system.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think overall, it's another result which doesn't dictate how Hamburg are playing right now in the last few weeks. The manager's getting a lot of good things out of this team, and they just need something to go their way. And soon, because, newly promoted team, and you always worry, they perform well, they don't get results. How long does that continue before the confidence in the team drops and things start to go really wrong for them?
Exactly.
So hopefully, from my point of perspective, a neutral, Hamburg's start picking up results dictative of their or indicative, I should say, of their performances. I know you, as a Pauli fan, has a differing opinion on that, but
Just slightly, just slightly. But yeah, look, I agree. I mean, I saw one of the other games involving one of the other um, promoted teams in Kern, and I thought that was a terrific effort from them. So it's really about, as you said, at this point of the season, you want to sort of consolidate those results to really elevate yourself up the table, as opposed to the confidence falling week by week, like my team is experiencing, for example. We'll get to that, and certainly sort of trying to avoid the bottom three and not being in that dogfight for the playoff spot and the automatic the relegation spots.
yeah,
And then from a Wolfsburg point of view, it's like you said, you can have your 1-0 wins and take those, but eventually you're going to really have to show stronger performances against these sides like these that you should be beating anyway, right? So
yeah.
that have just come up, but so I mean, plenty to like for Wolfsburg, and I guess the results for Hamburg will hopefully for them, not so much on my own.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying don't celebrate wins. It doesn't matter. Like, even if your team don't play well, still celebrate the wins. But overall, if we're looking at the bigger picture this season, the performances are not up to par, and they need to improve soon.
Absolutely, yeah.
One more thing I was just going to say, Hamburg it's frustrating to watch a team play well, just not get the result. Just got to work on that, tighten the screw a bit, I guess you could say, when it comes to that final product. Too many overhit crosses, couple of wayward passes that shouldn't have been wayward, and the shot selection is a bit poor at times. They just need to keep working on it. I really like their coach. I think he's got an incredible idea and system in place for Hamburg, and the players are really supporting that.
Yeah.
They just need to get that final product clicking, because I think when they do, they could go on a run which keeps them comfortably safe come the end of the season. It's just how long will it take for that to happen is the big question. Yeah.
Absolutely, and there's big raps on their coach from all reports, from what I've heard. But moving on to the next game, I actually had the pleasure of watching this one live.
Yeah.
Sunday morning. I'm not sure how much pleasure it was by the end, but
I'm just gonna say my piece on this, and we'll give you a bit of time because it is your team. So
go for it.
Yeah, so you went away to Frankfurt. You had a poor performance at home against Hoffenheim last week, and I have to say, it did not improve. The scoreline improved by one, but the performance did not improve one bit. In fact, arguably, I could say got worse potentially. Frankfurt comfortable 2-0 winners. Boy, did they need that win themselves. After starting the season so strong, they've been on a slump recently. They got pumped midweek in the Champions League, of course, by Liverpool. They needed this win in a big way, and it was a big performance to go with it. Jonathan Burkhardt with another 2 goals like last week. It's got to be close to that time where Germany, who have been in desperate need for a proper goal-scoring centre forward, can start to look at him, because he could be the one, as far as I'm concerned. Very good performance from him. Very strong performance from Frankfurt. Gets them back on track. Hopefully they can build on this, because I think they've got a good team who can push for second place, even get into that top 4. They've been on a slump recently. It's good to see them get back to some form with a strong performance and a good result. On to your boys, though. I don't know what's going on with your team right now. I mean, I know you lost a lot of games here and there last season because you finished 14th, I think it was in the end. But I don't recall many, if any, times last season when you looked so out of control in games, so defensively vulnerable, so many mistakes. Vasil had a terrible game. That first goal was awful from the keeper, who I thought...
Yeah, just a shocking error, and certainly, I mean, yes, the ball, coming in so close to the touchline was really good, a really good bit of skill, but you cannot be in such a high level competition. You can't be sort of attempting. It's not Sunday League, right?
Catch it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just watching this back. I was just watching it back when I was watching the highlights of your game, and I was just thinking, that's just such a catchable ball. I know you were telling me the other day that punch it. Yeah, fine, punch it, but I think straight up, professional top level Bundesliga keeper, you're catching that ball. And I don't think there's any excuses, because he was one of the best keepers in the league, or better keepers in the league last season, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And this season, he started the season all right, but since you've been on this slump, I don't think he was particularly fantastic last week. He was awful this week.
No.
I just think there's huge issues in the team. And another thing I'll touch on, it was an issue last season, the lack of goals in the team, but how solid you were at the back made
Yeah.
up for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why in the end you comfortably stayed up.
Yeah.
I think it's a big worry this time because teams look like they're starting to work out how to spread the play and break you guys down with that compact system you have under Blessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this lack of goals is starting to really rear its head in an ugly light. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to move on to you as the fan to give us some proper insight here. What is going on at your club? Because it's 5 defeats in a row. You look in the worst form that you've been since it comes to Bundesliga.
Yeah.
Are you starting to change your kind of, mood around the coach, the team? Do you what's going on? You know more than me, obviously, watching more frequently.
I actually am, and it was something that we did sort of discuss in our review last week. And after that result, I was sort of thinking about it, just going through the review last night of some of the other games, and yeah, my tone's changed. I mean, I don't want us to be, and you see this in the Premier League all the time with promoted teams that go up and they might last a year and then they go down, the year after that. I don't want that to happen to my club. We've done so well we won the Zweite Bundesliga, 2 seasons ago, and I don't want us to go back there after another 2 years, right? So, you look at how great it was for the city and whatnot, to have that reward for such a dominant season. But I mean, the one thing I'll say from a Frankfurt point of view is I rate Burkhardt really highly.
Yeah.
I've sort of been following him for a number of years, even before we.
He was good at Mainz as well. That's the thing.
I was just about to say, yeah, he was terrific at Mainz, and that's sort of where he got my attention. But yeah, look, we've got problems. Forget the error from Vasil, and the other thing I guess on that was he had a couple of brain phase last season as well. I remember, a game where he actually almost got red carded because he mouthed off at the referee after he conceded a goal, and it was a really important game for us. And I don't think we won that day. It was a home game, I remember, but we've got to sort stuff out really, really fast. We've got a Pokal game against Hoffenheim in midweek, and I was sort of thinking it'd be hilarious if we actually won that game, given the fact that we can't win in the league at all. But look, the first, interesting first half. Cars had a goal conceded after 5 minutes from offside. It was a really, really good bit of play, and he's come in for a start as well. Hatonji was back in the lineup with Pereira Lage as well. That 3-4-3 formation. The 3 at the back was interesting, but I noticed that and Karel Metz, the Estonian captain, is his first start since November, which always helps. It'll take him a few games to get back into the swing of things. Irvine did come off the bench late as well, which will be good for him. So getting those noted players back and playing most weeks or every week, hopefully, is really going to help them. But I think that's been one of the problems from a defensive point of view, just not having those guys there.
You say that, but Karel Metz, you said, had been injured since November, so he missed a chunk of last season. Didn't change anything.
Well, aside from him, I mean, Irvine was really the conductor in midfield last season. Before he had, and he had a foot injury. I think it was just at the end of the season, which ran into the start of this campaign. But the game itself, we've talked about that Vasil error, which was absolutely horrifying. Watching it live was probably worse than maybe seeing it on the replay the next morning. I don't know, but that first goal was just really, really not great for the confidence. And let's face it, the confidence has already been battered. We've talked about the recent results and that Hoffenheim defeat last week, which was just awful from a defensive standpoint. And look, we didn't really create too many chances, and that's also been the issue that you were talking about before.
I mean, the problem is, this is why I bring up Blessing. He's been a great defensive coach. I mean, you showed it, as I said before, last season. But at what point does it turn where attack needs to start being looked at? Because, it's hard enough as a proper big club to rely on defence to get you good results season in, season out. But when you're a club that's newer to the league, just come up and not considered such a big club, obviously, with less quality in and amongst the squad, you can't rely on a defensive structure to always keep you up because it's showing now this season in this run that you're on at the moment.
We're getting
Teams look like they
picked
know
off.
how to
Yeah,
break you down now, and that's the worrying thing.
yeah,
That being
definitely.
said, you have an absolutely ginormous game in the league next week. I don't know if you've seen, you obviously know the fixtures, at home against the bottom of the table Gladbach, who haven't won a
Right,
game yet this season.
right.
Could be in my opinion, I don't know how your board work. I don't know if they're lenient or whatever with managers, but in my opinion, if I was on the board, 5 defeats in a row, you're going down, you're in poor form, you're not scoring enough goals, all of the above. If you don't win this game against a winless Gladbach, maybe it's the end of the road for Blessing. I don't know. Because that, I think, for me,
Yeah,
is what this season swings, or not whole season, but it does swing on this, in my opinion. Because
yeah.
if you drop points and you go down to a winless Gladbach,
hmm
I think then it's panic stations. I
I
know you're still 3 points clear of the bottom three at the moment, but
But for
it's
how
only going
much
to be a
longer?
matter of time if this continues.
Spot on, spot on. Look, as I said, my mood sort of changed, and I completely agree. I wasn't aware of the opponent, so thank you for letting me know. I
Yeah,
generally don't tend to sort of look at who we're playing until later in the week, and also to see if I can watch it live or if it's going to be too hard to do given the time zone. But just the last couple of things I'll just mention on this one. The Burkhardt's second was a fantastic effort. It was a wide cross from Chaby. He did enough to hold out Helkaval to put the game beyond doubt by that
that was
point.
a really good goal,
I
actually.
thought it was terrific, yeah. But more so the pattern that I've seen is lapses in concentration are happening more than those defensive gaps, especially in that Hoffenheim game from last week where we just got cut up too easily and too often. It's just those little concentration moments that we've let slip. I mean, that second goal was class, but you just cannot be, giving up, really poor errors from your goalkeeper. But from a I guess a looking forward, we've mentioned the 5 defeats on the run. That Poco clash on Wednesday.
So that'd be good to win just for the confidence, but the main
Yeah,
focus is that Gladbach game
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's big, basically, at this
yeah,
point for you now.
and
Like,
yeah, the other sort of part of that which you'll actually be interested in, the next month of games is actually going to be crucial because we've got a trip to Bayern at the end of that month,
yeah,
and most sides around Pauli at the moment actually are getting good results, which, as we said before, is it's going to be a matter of time before we're in the bottom three.
well, you're close to it now.
And
That's
we're
the thing, right?
even though we're close to it and we've got a 3 point gap or whatever it is, that's going to very quickly
It's just because I'm
shorten.
looking at the teams around that. Hamburg are losing games, but they're playing well. Mainz are losing games. We're going to get onto them a bit later, but they're also playing well. You're losing games and you're playing terribly.
Mm,
That's the difference. Even Gladbach, who played us, and we'll get onto that quite soon. In fact, you know, they played. They defensively looked solid against us. Yeah, fine. They were poor against Union, and they haven't won, and it's been 8 games into the season. But you know, they still, right now, if we're going off the last couple of weeks, you look like one of the worst teams in the league, and that's what worries me about
yeah.
your chances going forward and why this game is so big.
Mm,
And the chance, the only thing I guess you could say is, hopefully, for your sake, Metz already is back in the starting lineup, but also hopefully for your sake, Jackson Irvine is ready to start that game because you
yeah.
probably need him at this point,
Yeah,
potentially, right?
yeah. Well, he only played about 5 minutes coming on the other night, but hopefully he's a professional enough to get more minutes. But I guess with the game coming up, it reminds me of a game just before the winter break last season against Bochum, who were in a similar position. I think they may have only won one game or may not have won, and they beat us at their ground in a really poor sort of condition game. It was really bad weather. They beat us 1-0, and I completely didn't expect that to happen. And we were playing okay at that point, so I guess hopefully this won't be another sort of banana peel game. But you're right, we absolutely have to win. It's a non-negotiable. But
Yeah,
as for what happens, we'll have to wait and see, right? So,
yeah,
um, and so this next game is one that you definitely had your eye on. It was
yeah,
Gilmore Bayern at Gladbach. So, why don't you go through what you
yeah.
thought of it?
I mean, look, the way the game started, I thought, oh my god, we're going to do 6 or 7 here. I mean, I don't know if you, I mean, when you saw the highlights, you would have seen within a minute, Luis Diaz sends a shot wide of the post as we go straight through the middle of them. But to be fair, to give them credit, bottom of the table, winless Gladbach, for the next 15 or so minutes, dug in and looked like they were trying to get a good foothold in the game, especially from a defensive standpoint, and they were trying to move up the pitch. But then a bit of stupidity from them. I think it's Karsdorp gets sent off. And then at that point, I'm like, all right, here we go. 6 or 7 might be back on the cards there now. But again, they surprised me. Go down to 10 men, fine. We take complete control of the game at that point, as you'd expect. But you have to commend the defensive efforts from Gladbach up until just after the 60-minute mark. In fact, it took that long. A lot of pushing from us, but just defensively, they were all, they were just staying in there, solid, good defensive performance. And that's what leans to what I said, like, even though they're bottom and they're winless, I still think they showed something in that game to show that they're definitely going to be, they definitely have enough quality in their team to push themselves clear of that relegation zone as this season goes on, so long as things start to go their way. So yeah, good, go down to 10 men against a team who've won now 13 wins from 13 games in all competitions this season. I'll get to that in a bit, of course, because there's something surrounding that, something big, in fact. But yeah, just the spirited performance basically is Kevin Dick stood out for me. Really solid performance at the back. Just kept our forwards quiet. Harry Kane barely had a sniff all game. Had a couple of shots after we started breaking through later in the second half. Didn't score, which is a shocker these days for Harry Kane, especially this season. But yeah, even though they went down 3-0, it was an incredibly brave performance from a bottom of the table, winless 10-man Mönchengladbach. But enough about them, I'll talk about us. Yeah, it was frustrating, and you're going to expect this is going to happen, and I gave my credit to them because I thought they played really well. Then again, obviously, Bayern still managed to get the win they probably deserved on the balance of it. Despite the spirited performance, eventually you could see it was coming. We made the subs, and that was when the game opened up a bit more. Gnabry came off the bench, excellent in the lead up to the first goal. Great reaction off his first block shot from Kimmich to put the ball in the back of the net. Just more quality from Joshua Kimmich right there. And then, we just kind of moved forward and kind of, moved through the gears from that. Rafael Guerrero got a great finish himself for a second goal. He's a really handy goal-scoring fullback, he is. Well, he's a bit of a utility man because I've seen him play midfield in the past for us. And then the third goal. We're going to talk about the third goal. He scored his first goal for us in midweek against Bruges in the Champions League. Yeah. Lennart Karl is one to watch. I mean, I've seen him play a lot of games this season, started way back in the Club World Cup when he made his first proper appearance for us. This kid is something special, I'm telling you. He really is. Another one off the Bayern Academy belt, essentially, of all the ones we've had in the past. What a goal. The confidence as well, similar to that goal. I don't know if you saw the midweek goal against Club Bruges, just taking the ball, just running past all these players, firing one into the top corner. Similar level of confidence to this. Gets the ball, shimmies past a man, edge of the box, just bends one brilliantly into the top corner. Gladbach's keeper doesn't move. The confidence oozing from this young kid is just incredible. And long may it continue because, he's, leading to the confidence the whole team is playing with at the moment. So just a comfortable 3-0 win in the end, although for the first hour or so it was difficult to break them down. But, once the first went in, then I kind of thought, we're probably going to get a couple more at least here now at this point, and that's exactly what happened. But now on to something else, the subplot of this game. I will also mention that third goal that Lennart Karl did score. That was our 30th goal in the league this season. That's a new Bundesliga record, apparently, if you didn't know. We are now the fastest team to 30 goals. We've done it in 8 games. We're scoring at an average of over 3 goals a game, which is just utterly ridiculous right now. The fact that every time we go into a game, we're going to be expected to score at least 3 goals if we're going off our expected goals at this stage of the season. But that's a record we broke. But there could be one more, far more impressive one if we get the job done and win our Pokal game against Köln during this week. We have now won 13 games from 13. We have won 13 from 13 matches now from the beginning of this season. A record equalled from one set by AC Milan back in 1992 when they did the same thing. We are playing Köln midweek in the DFB Pokal. We're not always. We usually in the last few seasons now we have been knocked out in early rounds in the Pokal in games you wouldn't expect us to lose. I think with this record on the line, I'm hoping we just pull one out and get this win against Köln to take what, in my opinion, might be one of the most impressive records in football ever, in my opinion.
Mm,
Because this is a
yeah,
record that stands for Europe's top five leagues. So I think without sounding like biased Euro snobs, I think everyone can agree that Europe's top five leagues are the top five leagues in the world. It's fair to say if we're just talking about terms of quality of players and teams and whatnot in them. So this is a record that stands through that. So if we beat Köln midweek, that's going to be 14 wins from 14 games to start our season and a new record for this team, which just week by week is proving this could be a record-breaking season beyond proportion. You know,
yeah.
Leverkusen went unbeaten 2 seasons ago. Is this going to happen to us? And even more ridiculously, how many of these games could we feasibly win come the end of the season? Right?
Mm.
Maybe not in all competitions. You know, Champions League has got some tough games in there as you progress through it. But in the Bundesliga specifically, how many games can we actually win this season? Because that's 8 on the bounce alone now in the Bundesliga.
Mhm.
So yeah, but that being said, we've got a massive game, just like you guys have a massive game at the bottom end of the table next week. There's a huge one at the top of the table as well with us taking on Leverkusen. So yeah,
Yeah,
the big games just keep coming thick and fast this month, I'll tell you that. But yeah,
absolute.
what were
Yeah,
your
the
thoughts on a game which in the end was
well,
comfortable, but not for until after the hour mark?
yeah, well, I mean, I do remember seeing. I think it was the halftime score, waiting for our restart, and yeah, it was a very very even game, and I sort of thought, oh, hopefully you guys can get the job done. But something I sort of noticed for Gladbach, and you were sort of talking about, they're not crumbling under pressure, and they're another one of those teams that need to find a way to win games pretty quick. Otherwise, they do risk getting cut adrift. The return possibly of injury of Tim Kleindienst, and he's another striker that I do rate highly as well. Former Heidenheim striker.
He
He can
was
actually really hit.
Yeah, he was great in like last season. He was up there in the Golden Boot thing. I mean, there's talks about him playing for Germany. I think he has played for Germany.
Mm,
Yeah, his return could be big for them, and it comes at a timely thing, right? With you guys next, and that's possibly his return date. So yeah, um, big week as I said next week in the
yeah.
Bundesliga of both
Ab-
ends
ab-
of the table, right?
oh, most definitely. It's sort of sort of starting to take shape a little bit even early on. I had a look at the next game, and look, from one side of the coin it was fantastic, and on the other side not so much. It was Augsburg being absolutely thumped on their home
On
patch
one side of the coin, it
by
was fantastic. On the other side, not so much. Yeah, it was dreadful on the other side.
just putting it mildly. Sorry, Augsburg fans, but RB Leipzig came and belted Augsburg 6-0. So they were handed more than a thumping. They're also now the new holders of the worst defensive record in the league, which was previously held by Eintracht before they beat us. Um, Leipzig actually reminding those who actually still like them. I know they're not well liked among the German
Look,
football community.
he's evened it up now, Augsburg fans. He's insulted you, and now he's just dropped one on Leipzig as well. And for all the
What
other Bundesliga fans, that's really pleased them because, yeah, we're not going to say it every week, but are they a
yeah,
club? I'm just saying.
are they a corporation?
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, they sent a timely reminder of what they're actually capable of on their day. I mean, they've played Champions League, and they are capable of games like this now and again. But really, to me, it was a weekend for poor defensive lapses. There was a 1-2 between Romelu and Diomande, ending up in the back of the net after just 10 minutes for the opener. And by 18 minutes, they had a second goal. Romelu with a really easy tap in. So to go 2-0 down after not even 20 minutes of play, probably really put Augsburg's defensive woes into sharp focus. And by half time, look, the game was almost, or pretty well. Sorry, it was done.
Yeah,
Pretty
almost.
much, they didn't. Yeah, they created minimal chances at their own end, which really tells the tale. And we've talked about other sides doing the same thing. But look, Finn Darman really tried, but once Baumgartner scored to make it 4-0, things were going particularly easy for them, and the defence really didn't offer any resistance, I thought. What were your thoughts, Chester, on this one?
Yeah, I mean, rampant, weren't they? Putting to bed that 6-0 thumping we gave them earlier this season, Leipzig, that is, with a response of their own. And they've really started to click into gear in recent weeks and really push, be another one of those teams in that conversation for who's going to finish as runners up. Again, I'm not being cocky as a Bayern fan, but let's be realistic, shall we? It just sounds like I am. Anyway, yeah, it's just another one of those performances where Leipzig have really started to click in recent weeks. Baumgartner, again, he's a hell of a player. He is Christoph Baumgartner, and he's really, this season, he's just coming up to another level. The forwards are just great. Antonio Nusa, another one off the Norway belt with the team of attacking talent they're going to be taking to the World Cup. Just all round a solid performance. Augsburg are on a slump right now. Sandro Wagner is just not getting things right. They've been on a steady decline, and just like St. Pauli and the other teams, they're in danger of slipping into an unwanted relegation battle at this point. One thing I will say, if we're mentioning St. Pauli, is talking about Basil's defensive, goalkeeper mistakes in recent weeks. You'll be glad Finn Darman still plays in the league, is playing in the league at this point.
Yeah.
My God. Both of the two of that Baumgartner's goal. I mean, what is he doing? It's like, the ball's gone straight at him, and he's basically palmed it down into the net. Is he just offering like kind of deflection board, like they have in training or something like that? And then even worse than that. I mean, I know at that point it's 5-0, and this one makes it 6, whatever. But still, like trying to catch a ball, fumbles it. Costello Jr., I think it was the easiest goal he ever score in his professional career potentially.
My thoughts exactly. Just sort of watching that, and as a card carrying member of the goalkeepers union over an indoor soccer career of many years, it's one of those things that if you're able to catch the ball or even fist it, you do that. But it was pretty comical, and especially when they'd already conceded 5 goals at that point, as you said, just you don't want to make it 6, and just fell straight to Costello Jr. and not too many easy goals he'll score than that, and it really summed up their afternoon, I thought. Especially like I said, conceding twice in the first 20 minutes to go to that for to put a tie bow around the result. But yeah, contrast to fortunes really. Leipzig moving up to second, and Augsburg, as you mentioned, just above that playoff spot in 15th, right next to us. So is it going to be a case of Augsburg hitting their straps and getting results, or are we going to actually hopefully start getting some results? That's the massive question. But yeah, not a great game for the home side, but RB would really be happy to be finding some form.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on now, try not to spend too many time on every game. To Hoffenheim's 3-1 win against Heidenheim. Another strong performance after they dispatched you guys last week, I have to say. That press, the high press of Hoffenheim this season is really working for them right now. They started a bit slow this season, but they're really starting to hit their straps, so to speak, and hopefully for their sake it can continue this season. There's just a lot of neat little kind of interchanges of passing in that press and the kind of the aggressiveness of it. Kramaric has been brilliant this season. He scored last week. He grabbed another goal today. Just the quick, as I was saying, the interchanges of passing and the vision of him today, just brilliant last week, brilliant again this week. Mr. Hoffenheim, I might as well call him now. I don't know if the fans refer to him as such, but I certainly will for how long he's been there. The impact that he's having on the team and continues to have. I think he was a bit quiet at times last season, but he's stepped up again this season so far because last few weeks especially, he's been very good for them. It's looking difficult again for Heidenheim. They were brave to get that 2-2 draw, against Bremen at home last week. It's just looking like it's going to be another long old season for Heidenheim overall, though. Just doesn't really look like, when you look at the team, it doesn't look like, do they really have enough quality to stay up? That's the big question. I mean, on paper, they probably have the weakest squad in the league, no offence. And, it's just looking like another big old relegation battle's looming for them. They got out of it just at the end last season through that playoff, but will they be so lucky this season? I don't know. Not much more I could really see on it. Back-to-back goals for Schimmer, which is a good sign for them because they probably need a goal scorer desperately in this side right now. Hoffenheim, yeah, they move up into seventh, don't they? European spots as the way things stand.
Yeah, yeah, they've
Um,
had a really
but
good
yeah,
past
I
couple of
think
weeks. Yeah.
Heidenheim have a long old season ahead of them, and results like this aren't going to help them, really, are they?
No, definitely not. No, I'll just sort of mention a couple of things that I sort of took out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kramer I'm now going to call the Hoff.
that's a better
As a
one than
result of that,
me.
another well-known actor who was also big in Germany.
Was he a Hoffenheim
Um,
fan? I don't know. David
really,
Hasselhoff, if you're watching this video, there's my next celebrity shout out. I do it every week. Let us know if
there's,
you're a Hoffenheim fan, will you?
there's always one. But a couple of quick things I took out of this game. Heidenheim are only above the winless Gladbach now, which doesn't help them at all. I think they are the weakest squad in the competition, and Köln, who's actually the next game we're going to cover, I think have a stronger sort of setup. But a guy who's been really good for Hoffenheim early season, I'll give a shout out to, is Fisnik Aslani. You mentioned that promotion playoff that Heidenheim were lucky to win in last season. Chester, he was actually on loan as Lani for Elversberg, who almost beat Heidenheim in that playoff for promotion.
That's true, yeah.
And had a really good season with them on loan. And he's come back to Hoffenheim, and not only has he sort of stamped his mark in the starting lineup, but he's also been scoring goals through midfield, but can play as that number 10 role as well. So real credit to him. And Hoffenheim, they've had a really good start to the year, as we said, moving into seventh, and hopefully that'll continue. And yeah, that press that St. Pauli encountered last week was on show again against Heidenheim, and that sort of shows that it can be really, really dangerous for them. But
It's just looking really good. That
yeah,
combination almost between Aslani, Kramaric, and Lempele, they look just really good right now. And especially playing the smaller teams, there's a real chance they're going to win a lot of those games, which could ultimately be their route into Europe potentially. But we'll see, I guess.
yeah, absolutely. And we talked about one of the other promoted teams that came up, and that's Köln. So that's actually the next game that we'll cover. And I had a look at this one. So Dortmund, it was a late show with Dortmund, 1-0 win against Köln. Now this one I actually thought was probably the match of the round from a neutral perspective. You may have a different view, Chester, but
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't quite touch the 4-3 Leverkusen Mainz game from last week, but yeah.
no, but I mean, yeah, that's last week. This is this
Yeah.
week, obviously. So in terms of this week's action, it could well be the pick of the bunch. But look, Köln, I always sort of think of promoted teams as sort of potentially struggling, but Köln actually look like they've put a really good squad together, and it actually showed in this game that they possibly have what it takes to avoid the drop this season. Guirassy was really up there for Dortmund and creating chances. Köln had a back five with nothing to lose, and it really showed in their press that they really stifled the attacking runs of Guirassy and even Karim Adeyemi, who really caused some serious problems on the left. He almost actually scored to give Dortmund the early lead, and they had a couple of chances in the opening 5 minutes, but Köln really pressed them hard early, and it took them a little while, Dortmund, to get into the contest. Köln almost scored not long after that, about 20 minutes in. Dortmund actually turned it over in midfield, which is really uncharacteristic for them. And Said Almala, who had a really good run off the left, he's quite quick, just put his shot wide at the far post. But Kerbal in goal put some really good pressure on him, and another defender sort of came in late with a foot. So that really could have been a chance for Cologne. Would a higher rated striker or someone with a bit more polish at the level put it away? Quite possibly. But I thought that was probably their best chance of the half. Any thoughts on this one, Jester?
Yeah, as you said, it was a very tight game, and that late, we were pushed by Gladbach, but we managed to break through a little earlier. That massive goal and a massive win for Dortmund. That Maxi Bayer scoring right at the very depth of the game, pretty much. With that goal, I thought Köln will be a little disappointed themselves, having defended largely very well throughout the game, to kind of concede in that manner at the end, a bit of a scramble. Maybe they could have done a lot better from that situation, possibly, to try and get the point away at Dortmund. But nevertheless, it's a huge point in Dortmund's top four quest. Not points, sorry, huge win, sorry, my bad, in Dortmund's top four quest. They had a good win in the midweek in the Champions League as well, so it's good to back that up a couple of days later. Yeah, but overall, not the most disappointing thing. Disappointing for them to lose all the points at the end from Köln, but overall, as you said, you look through the squad. They've come up from the Zweite Bundesliga. They only have one season down there, pretty much. They've come straight back up for the first time, and it looks like they're going to stay at least for one season right now. Because yeah, they just look like overall they're playing too well and they're getting results, which means they're probably going to be all right. I mean, we don't know. Later in the season, things could change for them, but I like their chances of staying up. Not much more to say really about this. It was a game where Dortmund had a lot of the ball, had a lot of the attacks you spent. Köln, another solid defensive effort, just like last week against Augsburg. They've only conceded one goal in open play under these last 2 weeks, and that was right at the end of this game because of a penalty last week against Augsburg, of course. Almala looks good, super quick. That's kind of key for them.
Yeah.
Maybe just lacking that final product, but overall, I think they should be fine this season. And it's not the worst result to walk away from the Signal Iduna Park with a narrow 1-0 defeat to Dortmund, which probably could have been a goalless draw. So nothing really worth the fans hanging their heads down about. It's Dortmund. It's away from home. It will happen from time to time, and they push them all the way. So yeah.
Yeah, well, then to concede in the second last minute of the game through Maxi Bayer, from what I thought was actually quite a good hit. Nothing to be disappointed with, except for not gaining a point on a really fortress-like sort of stage. So.
Yeah.
And they'll, as you said, they'll get better as the week goes on. They've got a really solid squad, but
I just think they'll pick up enough points. I think just overall across the season, they're going to pick up enough little points here and there and wins here and there to keep themselves comfortably clear and probably finishing. I think Europe might be a bit of a stretch. We've seen it happen before. Newly promoted teams go straight to Europe. Heidenheim obviously did it. But I think sensibly more like a comfortable mid-table finish looks likely for this Köln side. One other thing I'm going to say, Dortmund, he came off the bench against us last week, made a bit of a difference. Julian Brandt, I thought, was excellent again today. Didn't have the impact in terms of the goal-scoring impact he had against us last week, but again, makes things happen. And I think, if Dortmund are to, push for that, comfortable top four finish, he is one of the key people in that team, as is obviously the case. But yeah, just putting it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I thought it was a terrific game on both sides of the coin. So the next game we're going to look at is Bayer Leverkusen. They had a 2-0 win at home against Freiburg. And the home side actually really made the most of their first real shot on goal. It was after 22 minutes. It was Garcia with a really nice back heel on the edge of the box, and allowed Ernest Poku to beat Noah Atabolu, who's one of the the up and coming rising stars from a goalkeeping
I really
point of view. Yeah, as do I. Nice low drive to open the scoring, but it was on the back of a really fast attacking run, and it's good to see that style of play really paying off. And certainly that Freiburg pressure that was on that really intensified because Leverkusen actually doubled the lead soon after half time. So a right cross came in, Grimaldo finished it really well. It was a pinpoint header from the defender Edmund Tapsoba, and it was actually his first goal of the season, so it's really nice to see defenders bobbing up now and again to get themselves on the score sheet.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, it wasn't, it was a comfortable win in the end, really, for Leverkusen. I felt in that game we were really starting to click under Kasper Kjellman after their slow start to the season under Ten Hag. It was a closer game last week against Mainz. I think they were way more in control of this one, especially after that red card for Lineart. But yeah, I mean, it didn't really look like they were ever in danger of dropping. There's a couple of early chances from Freiburg, but overall not enough. Leverkusen definitely a lot more quality shown in that game overall. It was a great finish from Ernest Poku as well. He's really showing to be a decent little player this season. And Grimaldo is just, he's one hell of a player, isn't he? Grimaldo, he really is. Like, he didn't score in this one, but he just, as terms of fullbacks go, I've never seen a fullback be so, maybe Trent, I guess you could say. But in terms of Bundesliga fullbacks, it's just like, again, maybe Davies, but just up there in the creativity. He's, a fullback who has the brain of like a number 10 when he's on the ball, like, which is just
Yeah, yeah,
ridiculous. Overall, just way too good for them in a game which was just, as I said, comfortable for Leverkusen. Their team is, good. They've got a real test, obviously, against us next week, as do we against them, I guess you could say.
mm,
So that'll be interesting to see how that one finishes.
yeah,
Yeah, Tap Sober is a towering height. I mean, we bought Tar from them in the summer. I think Tap Sober stepped up big time in that defense this
yeah,
season. And it's we've been the best two teams in the league for the last few seasons. I think it's fair to say, and they're
yeah,
putting on performances after their slow start, but then now they're putting on performances that show that they could potentially just be right up there again with us potentially as this season goes on.
yeah,
Um,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
I just think they've built a good team. They've had a bit of a slip up. Maybe got the appointment wrong with Ten Hag's appointment. Kasper Kjellman's come in and he's doing an amazing job for them, and they win again more comfortably this time. And I think already at this point you can see they're one of the names of those teams that's going to be set on a top four finish throughout as this season goes on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, well, certainly from a table perspective, Bayern have opened up a 4 point gap now in fifth to Frankfurt and Hoffenheim. So, even at this sort of part of the season, that's still really important in terms of, like you said, you want to try and consolidate yourself for a European spot, whichever level that or competition that might be. So I think for Bayern it was a really important home win, but Freiburg, going down to 10 men late just showed their frustration in this one. So the last game of the round was actually a pretty good game, I thought. So Stuttgart at home winning 2-1 at Mainz. What were your thoughts on this one, Chester?
yeah. I really like Stuttgart this season. I really do. I mean, they had a bit of a drop off last season. Maybe that was European football, because they had the Champions League and all that last season, and maybe that caused it. But I think they're back again this season. They just look really good again this season. Stiller just impresses me every single week, and I'd really love to get him at United or Bayern. Um, Preferably United, I think, because Bayern already have enough players in those positions. But yeah, I just think Stuttgart just look really good this season. They're fun to watch. They're a good, aggressive, high energy team. They've got good quality in the team. They absolutely blew Wolfsburg off the park last week. A little closer this week against Mainz. Mainz did have their moments. Another decent performance from Mainz, but I think again they've been on the wrong side. They fall on the wrong side of a defeat again. Um, I talk about European football, obviously, and Stuttgart, having that last season and missing out this season because they didn't have a good season last season. Maybe that was because of European football. I definitely think Mainz is suffering the same right now. They got a good win midweek in Europe, but they've lost back-to-back games, fine, albeit against a good Leverkusen and a very good Stuttgart side. But they have got 4 points right now from their first 8 games, so it's not just those 2 games that are to blame for their poor start. They've had easier games which they haven't picked up points in that maybe they should have. And they, much like with Hamburg's argument that I said earlier in this video, they're playing well, they're just not getting the results. And much like Hamburg, and maybe more so for Mainz, because they're currently in that bottom 3 right now, it's maybe a more urgency that they need to start picking up points. And, with that impact of, the heavy legs and the travel, maybe they don't have the squad depth to deal with like full-on European football demands. Because it's a relatively new thing for them in Europe. I think it's been a while since they've been there, so it's definitely looking like it's having an impact on them. But yeah, back on Stuttgart, they started, mine started well, in fact. Jason Lee, good, positive, lively start from the forward. Then Stuttgart took control. Then that contentious penalty, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I think it was a clear penalty. I know Stefan Bell was probably pushing the Stuttgart player. I just think you're still raising your hands in the box. It's probably right to give it a penalty. Amiri's
Yeah,
got penalties in back-to-back games. A good player for Mainz, had another solid game today. But you always felt once Stuttgart took control of this match, especially once Stiller came on in the second half, that they were going to take that. They were going to find a way to win the game just with the overall quality they have. It's a great equaliser from Fury. Just brilliant, wasn't it? Just outside of the box, curls it
Yeah,
across right into the top corner. Brilliant goal. And then
absolutely.
in a different way, equally, Dennis Undav, fantastic composure on the finish, just dinking it over the keeper. I think Mainz will be very disappointed as how they conceded that goal from Undav. Just one long ball from Newball, another very good keeper in this league, along with
Yeah,
a couple of others. Just straight up the middle of the pitch, falls to Undav, nice little dink over the keeper. Yeah, another good performance from Undav, who I think wasn't particularly at his best last week. Much better this week. Very busy harassing the Mainz defence. Got a goal for his efforts. Yeah, I just think overall good performance from Mainz, but just similar to the Leverkusen game, the team they played just slightly better overall. Mainz lacking that final product, especially when they were throwing things at it in the last couple of minutes and stuff. Had a late corner. Zentner came up for it. Maybe it's one of those moments where I'm like, ooh, what if Stuttgart catch them on the break? It didn't happen, of course, but yeah, Stuttgart looking very strong, and just like Leverkusen, starting to look like a team who are going to be starting to solidify their bid for a top four finish this season. Yeah, I like watching. I like Stuttgart, this team at the moment. I know they're
yeah,
somewhat rivals with us and stuff, but I lived in Stuttgart. The season I got into the Bundesliga for the first time was actually the season when they won the league in 06, 07.
right.
But then Bayern won the league for the most part after that, and Bayern finished fourth that season. So I'm not a glory hunter. I didn't just go for a team that only won winning. I know since then they're winning, but they did finish fourth the first season I started following them. Yeah, but yeah, your thoughts on a game which I thought wasn't a particularly fantastic, amazing game all round, but had
No,
moments of
yeah,
quality in it.
definite quality. And look, from a point of view of that penalty, I mean, yeah, you've got sort of right to sort of give the striker or the forward the benefit of the doubt there. So probably was there. The thing that I took out of it sort of post game was, Mainz are still entrenched in the bottom three, just 4 points from 8 games, but it's the impact of European football that's
Yeah,
likely affecting their league form, and you'd probably agree with that. I'd say the performances haven't been terrible, but certainly their concentration for the full 90 minutes has definitely been an issue. Not the only side to have that issue, but certainly for them, coming off European football, good teams find a way to sort of navigate that. And we've talked about a couple of them already. It's certainly something for them where they are capable of, they're sort of that sort of mid-table capability where they can get enough points to finish there, but
yeah.
they want to start
I
getting
don't
some
think
good
they're going to get
results.
relegated. I just think they've got
No,
too much quality for all the teams
exactly.
that you'd think are going to be down the bottom of the table.
Mm,
They probably look like one of the strongest squads in there. So
yeah,
I mean, Munch
yeah,
and Gladbach are bottom of the table, and they have a better squad than that suggests. But I think it's different. They don't have European football minds. Depending how they do in Europe, if they get an early exit from Europe, maybe it could just help their league form, or maybe they'll just sort it out as the season goes on. As I said, they're not new, they're not, regularly used to European football, so maybe there's just kind of a period of bedding in, so to
mm,
speak. But yeah,
yeah,
they do need to pick up wins. It's not like we're saying, oh, it's all good, it's all chill. They are in a precarious position right now. 4 points from 8 games is not great, and seeing them in the bottom three is not great for them as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're one of the teams, if we go back to talk about you guys, they're one of the teams who I think, once they get their act together, they're going to fly past you if you don't get your act together soon.
I
So yeah,
completely agree, and that's what I was alluding to just before with, they don't strike me as being like a relegation candidate. They might look like it now, but they've got that squad depth and that strength to fly past teams like us, as you just mentioned. So, look, a really, really solid round. I certainly thought it had plenty to offer. So, so Union going down to Bremen 1-0, Hamburg losing 1-0 to Wolfsburg on their own deck. St. Pauli, another defeat 2-0 away to Frankfurt. Bayern just doing what Bayern do, 3-0.
on the brink of
That's it.
history, though, let's not forget about that.
On the brink of history, doing what they do. Thank you. 3-0.
Big game in the Pokal midweek. Big,
Yeah,
big game. Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be a big round in the Pokal as well. There's some really good matchups
I mean,
coming up.
the Bundesliga is like next week as well. We've got that, Bayern Leverkusen, that top of the table battle, and then that relegation 6-pointer between St. Pauli and Gladbach. Another game to
Yeah.
look out for next week, which is going to be huge.
Will we rest players midweek? That's the big question.
Yeah.
RB Leipzig 6-0 against Augsburg. Heidenheim going down to Hoffenheim 3-1. Dortmund 1-0 against a very plucky, resilient Köln. Bayer Leverkusen 2-0 winners against Freiburg. And the game we just talked about, so Stuttgart 2-1 winners over Mainz.
Yeah.
So we're on to the A-League. A-League review.
On to the A-League. 5 games, not 6 this week, of course. Those of you who are listening are aware that obviously MacArthur and Adelaide are playing each other tonight. We don't want to get an episode out on Tuesday, so we're just going to review the 5 games this week. And probably good for the length of the video as well. So yeah, we'll just jump straight into it. Once again, Ben gets an absolute crackerjack of a game in the A-League. Well, I'm just getting a bit fed up already of like watching dull games in the A-League. And he's getting games like Mariners Jets last week, and then Jets again this week, who absolutely destroyed Victory. A great old result for both of us, of course. I'm sure as a City fan, you absolutely enjoyed watching Victory getting it handed to themselves.
I thought 2 things. I thought it was a great round of football for that and some other things, but I think in terms of the getting the good games, I think I got the bookmarks at either end again, but we'll cover.
Just let you know, had I watched the Friday night game, it probably would have been a 1-0 win to Melbourne Victory or something like that.
Well, it wasn't. It was actually a 5-2 win to the Jets against Victory, but this was a really positive start from the Jets, and I've talked about them. I think I talked about them last week having really good form on the back of that Australia Cup win, but it was really the Alex Battolato show for mine. A hat-trick, and he's surely one of the early contenders for signing.
Can I just say, not just a hat-trick, there was some absolutely unbelievable goals in that hat-trick from him as well.
Yeah.
What a player he started this season as. Honestly, I'm kind of happy Wanderers let him leave.
Yeah. Yeah,
so they don't have him.
No, that's a very good.
Knowing that he's probably going to absolutely tear us apart next week, but this week, sorry, but yeah. But we'll continue.
No, well, I was just going to say, look, the Jets would be thrilled to have him, and they've been that sort of a bit of a club in the wilderness on and off field for a little while, so it's good to see them sort of really showing their wares. They've got some good players in their squad, and I'll touch on another one of them shortly, but. Dennis Johnru, who's back in the competition, as you mentioned last week. So he was gifted a tap-in to pull one back for Victory. Jason Davidson hit a really good ball on the edge of the box, and Johnru was just on hand to tap that in. Johnru seems to be fitting back in well to the competition. Keenan Jelicic worked really hard to get Victory in it until late. He's actually a really promising player for them as well.
Good signing from Raw, I thought. Decent young player for Raw last season.
Yeah, definitely. But I thought Victory gave the ball up unnecessarily at times, and that allowed Newcastle even more attacks. And as a result of that going by the scoreline, they were rightly punished. Probably the best example I would say was them conceding in the first half stoppage time to go 3-1 up. The game was still live before that goal, and by that point it was almost out of reach. Just really poor defensive efforts cost them. The other guy from the Jets I'll give a hat to, and Chester, as you know, I do like my puns, and this is no exception.
This is a terrible one, people. I saw it. Yeah, just go for it.
Out of the frying pan into the Oscar fryer, with a nice finish to wrap it up and put 5 goals past Victory. Like and subscribe if you like that pun. Comment if you don't.
Yeah, sorry, thanks for reminding me. I always forget this. If you've made it this far into the video, you lovely people, don't forget to like, give us a follow and a subscribe. Check out our Instagram, maybe. Continue, Ben.
This could be the gateway to weekly puns. We don't know, but what were your thoughts on the contest? It was obviously a really one-sided game for the opening game of the round.
My thoughts are, much with the fact that obviously the Jets produced the best game of the round this week. They've done it 2 weeks in a row, and maybe this could be their whole thing this season. Score a lot, but aren't the best defensively. We'll find that out when they probably beat us like 4-0 or 5-0 this week, and my whole opinion on that has changed. But no, yeah, the young team. I mean, there's a lot of young players, obviously, with the whole development angle. The league's trying to go down this at this time, in every club. But yeah, their young players in particular are stepping up. They got them that, they got that FFA Cup. They didn't win. They lost that, due to that. But I mean, they lost last week, first round of the season. Doesn't mean too much. Poor defense, really the only reason that they lost that game.
Cup win.
And they've put that right and to bed essentially with an absolute pumping of victory this week. With an absolute pumping of victory this week. So yeah, I mean, onwards and upwards for the Jets essentially, who right now look like they're soaring toward cloud nine. Mark Milligan's doing an excellent job. I know it's only 2 games into the season again, but trying to stay too grounded, not give them the credit where it's due essentially. I think good solid win gets them off and running at home and off and running for the season, and they look like they're going to have a good team, and they could potentially in that conversation for the top 6 throughout this season.
Absolutely, it's quite possible.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the game I had the pleasure of watching, which was a good old solid 1-0 win for Auckland against Wanderers. Now, look, at least I watched the Wanderers game and they didn't win, so that's one thing. Auckland are good again, aren't they? They're just good again. They still have a good squad. Whilst the other teams have lost quality, they've still got quality in their squad. Looks like at home they're just going to be a beast of a team again, just like they were in this game. The hit and hope football doesn't always work. Fancy that, Wanderers? More of that crap from Alan Stajic, I have to say, which is an absolute joy to watch. I mean, I hate Wanderers because I'm a Sydney fan and I find it hilarious to watch, but it's also tedious to watch. I'd love to know, put any comments, Wanderers fans, how you feel about this football, because my fucking god, it's atrocious in it sometimes. Auckland just look way better. De Vries and Sakai, easily the best 2 fullbacks in the league without a shadow of a doubt, and I don't think anyone can contest that. Jesse Randall stepped up big time this season. I think he got a fantastic goal, the only goal of the match. And just Auckland just swamp all over Wanderers every time they try to get any semblance of control. Angus Thurgate did his best throughout it. I just think Auckland won every single battle imaginable in that game, and the only reason they didn't score more was just a bit of, uncertainty in front of goal. Wanderers do defend well. I'll give them credit for that. Bonatig looks like he's up for a good season. He was decent last season. He's been very good to start this season. Same with Pantazopoulos. That partnership between the two of them at the back looks good, especially if they got a keeper like Lawrence Thomas, who, I don't really think is a particularly great keeper behind them.
For obvious reasons.
I called Sam Cosgrove clunky or whatever it was last week. Much better from him this week from the Englishman. A lot more proper, getting stuck in, getting involved. Showed a bit of pace at times as well. Busy on the pitch. Didn't get a goal, of course, but really gave the Wanderers defence a good physical battle, which is what you'd like to see, especially from this Auckland side, who've at many times been labelled a physical side. And, I think, again, they're going to prove it this season. Going to be up there, I think. Another strong performance where even though it was 1-0, you didn't really at any point feel that Wanderers were going to get into the game. So yeah, comfortable win for Auckland that was.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible for Auckland to make Mount Smart another fortress as they did last season. I mean, I was not surprised to see the stands packed out again. They've obviously got a really strong supporter base. New mascot as well, a big giant kingfisher bird. Or sort of simple. I think it might be a kiwi or a kingfisher, one of the two. If you know what I'm talking about, for those Auckland or Kiwi football fans that are watching, let us know. Just really seem to bring the fans in again, and I think if they can get results at home, it's going to be another solid season for them. You mentioned Bonatig for the Wanderers. His brother Liam actually made his debut for City on the weekend, and that's actually the next game that we'll cover. So, any last thoughts on that game before we move on to the next?
No, I just think good that Wanderers lost again, and good that Auckland won for the sake of Stevie Corica. In all seriousness, another good solid win for Auckland, and already they look like they're going to be difficult to beat again this season. So But yeah, we'll move on to your game, and for the first time in this review, we can have a review from someone who was actually watching this as a live football match. How was the first home game of the season for you, Ben? Back
Oh,
at
look,
Eden Park.
it was fantastic. I did take a few photos, so the Instagram post that'll be going up
Yeah,
probably tonight. I'll be sure to include some of those as well, just
yeah.
to capture the atmosphere. The catch cry for opposition fans who are just salty that we won the title last season is the Green Seed Elite because of the fact that we're not able to draw massive crowds like some other teams who will remain nameless. But 6,000, I mean, first home game of the season. The club do a really good job of engaging pre-game with different activations, and they had the championship trophy, the toilet seat out front for next door, I should say, for people to take their photos with.
Did you
So
get a photo with it?
I didn't know. I couldn't be bothered waiting in line for 20 minutes.
It's
I
all
wanted to
good. It's all
get in,
good. You'll
but
get one next year.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or next home game, which I saw from the fixture, isn't
No, I
until
mean I'm just kind of alluding to the fact that you're probably going to win it again. So
well, that's the hope. But in terms of the contest, look, it was really good to be back. The actives, shout out to them. They were in really good form. They were handing out flyers for the Adelaide away trip coming up next month. So it just feels like the club's really connected with the fans and vice versa. But from an on-field point of view, look at the game. There's some wet weather in Melbourne during the afternoon and sort of onto that game. But the pitch was in immaculate condition. Where did we start? Look, it took 5 minutes for City to sort of pick up where they left off from last week. Max Caputo, who's a rising star of the competition, he was actually up front with Ben Mazzeo. And I've sort of talked about the positivity of City going with these young academy guys and giving them really good opportunities, and this is probably a good example. This game was a good a good example of that. Max Caputo scored within the first 5 minutes. A really good ball in from Matthew Leckie, so it's good to see the older mixing with the new. So 1-0 after 5 minutes. Jaden Kucharski, who we talked about last week as a really good linchpin for Perth, he was actually subbed off with injury before half time, and that affected Glory's attacking ability, which was actually quite limited. They did have a really good opportunity, but it was actually waved offside. But that probably wasn't the most disappointing aspect of the half for them. One of the worst back passes that I've seen in recent years from Byron Kaltak, who's an experienced A-League player. It was a back pass back towards Matt Sutton in goal not long after that miss.
I'm sorry. I'm just jumping ahead. I've just read that I didn't even see this before in detail. I missed it. I must have missed it. I've just seen the fourth note that you've put on this. I'm sure you're about to say this, but yeah, continue. If you saw me laughing on camera, people, I just had to explain why because I've just read the fourth note.
Yeah, well, that'll actually be the next thing that I'll talk about,
Yeah.
and you'll understand why.
Yeah.
So the back pass comes back to Caputo. He scores his second, and that sums up the first half for Glory. But you'd think Chester Atuna will let it be really great for City fans, coming back for the first home game of the year. Not exactly. I actually spotted a guy about 2 rows in front watching the races from Moonee Valley on his phone while the game was actually still going on. So
it wasn't half time. It was literally just during the match, basically.
I think it was just before the half.
Fucking hell, it's only 2-0. Oh, what's going on in the races? I don't know.
Yeah,
There's a game going on, mate.
Yeah.
What? No. I've got a bet on you, mate.
Big race, mate. I was stunned, and I sort of thought, are you not entertained? You're 2-0 up against one of the, well, let's face it, one of the...
You were literally about to say worse, so it's just not crime. You were literally about to call Perth one of the worst teams in the league. Perth fans, get at him in the comments.
Yeah, please do. And I did give you guys a rev up in recent weeks to say that you guys actually travel really well, and you do. So, I do like what the supporters do in terms of travelling, despite the club's form not being what it could be. But certainly from back to the on-field stuff, I I certainly thought that Schreiber and Romani, another two of those young players, were really great. And they scored ripping goals towards the back end of the contest to put it beyond doubt. But also a shout out to Kanamori. He was a really, really good repeat threat with some really good runs. And City's ability to win the ball back was also class as well. Um, any any other thoughts, Chester, on this one before we move on to your game?
I mean, it's just a game. I think there's a result, possibly most pretty expected. I know Perth looked decent in the first half against Wellington last week, but once Wellington got hold of the game, it looked a bit easy for them at times going forward. And I think Perth go away to Melbourne City. No disrespect to Perth. 4-0 is a result that's somewhat expected, especially when you get off to the lead early on like you do. Max Caputo started the season well. It's 3 goals in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe Jamie McLaren a fading memory now. For Melbourne City, who knows? But yeah, I thought another good performance from him, solid performance from Melbourne City. I think it was Schreiber, wasn't it, with that goal? Fantastic.
It was
he's a young
yeah.
player. He's a young player, and he's the same Schreiber who looks decent as well for you. You got a lot of them, as I said before. A lot of these clubs do have a lot of decent young players, and I think you guys have got quite a few. They've been, a couple of them have been around the club for a few seasons now, but it looks like, especially in the case of Caputo, coming into their own this season potentially. That's from a Melbourne City perspective. From a Glory perspective, I mean, look, second game of the season, you travelled away to Melbourne, very good Melbourne City side, fine, you lost 4-0, pick yourselves up, dust yourselves off, go again next week, and, don't fall already this season, because I think your team's a lot better than it has been in recent seasons, so you should you should hopefully be a little better this season. Potentially. And the other thing I will say, I didn't actually. It's a good thing you put that note about the dude watching the races on his phone, because funnily enough, I didn't see that on the match highlights. They must have forgot to show that on the match highlights. How dare you?
It's always. I guess that's the good thing about me being able to attend most weeks. You do get to see these sort of things from a fan in the stands point of view. But and on that as well, the last thing I'll just mention is a good shout out to there was a couple that were walking back from the ground in old school NSL edition Glory jerseys. Glory fans will know exactly the sort of ones that I mean. It's always great to see those sort of kits at A-League grounds from a Glory perspective, and even other clubs. Those that know me, know that I've got Melbourne heart gear that I've worn on this podcast before, so certainly like to represent. I got pulled up by a guy pre-match outside. He was wearing a heart sort of track top, and I was wearing the same hoodie. For those that saw our tea break episode on Thursday, I had the same hoodie, rocking the old
That's what we're calling it, by the way. And Ben's literally just dropped the name, and we didn't even we literally thought of the name after the episode on Friday. We will quickly let you know for those who made it far. It's called the Tea Break. Ben came up with that name, much better than the name I was blabbing on about in the last video. It's called the Tea Break, just for reference, because I realised we hadn't even said anything about that. Just to let you guys know. We'll move on, though, to the next game, shall we? My team played and put in a much better performance than we did last week at Adelaide. Much more promising performance. I still don't think we're going to be amazing this season, but it was good to see this young team of ours come together and put in a really strong, dominant performance against a piss-poor Mariners. No offence to our Mariners fans, but you were bad in that game. Largely dominant from us. Mariners just way too one-dimensional at times in that match. Trying to go out wide rather than trying to force anything through the middle. I know Adelaide got a lot of success out wide, and that could be a way to get at us for teams this season. But it just too slow and too sluggish from the Mariners. We forced them out wide rather than them breaking out wide a lot of the time, so that allowed us a lot of time to recover. Tisserand was fantastic in the centre of that defence for us. Him and Alex Grant look like can form a decent-ish partnership this season, hopefully. Just not enough really joy allowed to the Mariners forwards. It was a tight game. goalless at half time. It wasn't until after that hour when we broke the deadlock. But I had a dig at Sam Cosgrove last week, called him clunky. He had a decent performance this week. I had a dig at Campuzano this week, called him clunky. He had a very good performance and a goal, and he got a goal to go with it. Really little clever bit of skill if you've seen it, which I assume you have.
I was just going to say, I thought that goal was superb. Yeah, I did see it.
Yeah, just misses it first time, but then the idea to just literally on the spin where other less experienced players may try and take a touch or turn their whole body around and miss the opportunity, just miss it halfway on the turn, flick it with the back heel into the back of the net. Just a nice, tidy striker's finish, gets him off the mark for the club. Good to see. And then Pat Wood, of course, back after a poor loan spell at Perth in the second half of last season. Good run, great ball into him from Joe Lolly. Little, just that cut back and a great little simple composed striker's finish to get him off the mark for the season as well. And his first goal in just under a year for Pat Wood as well. So it's good for Sydney fans to see him get off that. Ocon Engsler, one I'm going to point out. I mean, you've heard me talk a lot about him, haven't you, Ben? About how good I thought he was in our cup run earlier, and how and he had a solid enough performance last week. Even standout man of the match and deservedly so in the middle of the park for us against Mariners on Saturday night. Just young kid, as is a lot of these players in our team, and showing every bit of worth. Right, he's not Luke Bratton, he's not a Brandon O'Neill, Josh Galante, these solid defensive-minded midfielders we've had the pleasure of having in the past in the team. But, hopefully he's one we're going to keep for a couple of years to come, because I've highlighted him, as you've heard me talk about before, and I think I even mentioned him last week in this same vein, as a player who's one for the future. And he had a performance to showcase that today. Just really composed on the ball, has a good passing range, great tackling as well in this game, I thought, as well. Really good physical performance from him too, as well. And out wide, Joe Lolly, I mean, don't need to say much about him. Delivers pretty much every week. You know what you're going to get from him in terms of the performance and the consistency. And Alpha Santore, I thought big threat, on the wing. I just got a little frustrated at times from the poor final product, and sometimes just kind of running with his head down rather than looking up a bit and trying to slide teammates in a bit too. Should have been trying to slide teammates in, a bit more frequently. And the only other talking point from that match is one of the worst VAR. I mean, VAR gets slated massively, especially across the VAR and especially by me. And this was another example of this. How can the VAR in other games spend 5 minutes pissing around looking for nothing in situations to try and find reasons to disallow goals or whatnot, right? But when there's a clear fucking handball, as clear as the night fucking sky was that night on Saturday, you spend 30 seconds and decide, no penalty, move on. It's fine because we won the game, but my word, have we not won the game as a result of them not giving a penalty for that? Uproar. You obviously know what I'm talking about, Ben, but just
indeed, yeah.
Get your shit together. What is the point of paying? I'm just going to go on a little rant here. What is the point of paying all that money for this technology we've had for years and years now, and still you don't know how to use it properly? My word, right? Stop pissing around when there's situations in games towards the end of games looking for tiny little details that mean fuck all, and use it properly. And in the midway through a game, when a team's 1-0 up and they're on the break and a clear handball, maybe actually look instead of going 30 seconds, no, I'm not 100% sure. Do you want another angle? No, it's all good. Just say no penalty and we'll just get this game moving. Fucking hell, ridiculous. But yeah, enough on that. What were your thoughts about our win?
We both know that there was an A-League championship that was decided by a VAR mishap. So hopefully the connections were in the cords are all plugged in for that particular moment on Saturday night. But yeah, look, I mean, VAR's there for a reason, and you want
to piss off fans off. You're damn right.
Well, that's right. But also, the whole idea, and I look at it from an AFL point of view when they do score reviews and whatnot. But you want the decision quickly. You don't want to be waiting 5 minutes for something that can be picked up in 90 seconds, if that, right? So it detracts from the game. I don't like it really either, especially when you're at the ground and you don't know what's going on. But look, Campuzano's finish was great, but I do want to talk about the actual build-up to that goal, just that the control of the ball coming in, that led to that opportunity was terrific. Really good bit of skill. You mentioned Okon Engsler. Really high quality game from him, and one of those sort of rising stars of the competition that we've sort of already talked about. From the Mariners' perspective, just not enough quality on the ball, and pretty tame against a Sydney side that were well organised, and hopefully from your point of view, Chester, they'll continue to really have that good structure and set up in the coming weeks.
I think it's going to be a real test at Newcastle this coming week. I will say that. So yeah, that's a big test for them. We didn't travel well to Adelaide last week, so hopefully we can show up a little better against a very high flying Jets, or in the goal scoring high flying Jets at least. Yeah, but we'll move on to the final game of the round now. Just to quickly touch on this, because again, I don't, even though there were 3 goals in this game, I didn't think there was too much that went on in this game. Wellington beat Brisbane 2-1, 4 points from 2 games, good start to the season for the Phoenix. Brisbane knocked back after that winner in the first week. They took the lead, good little dink over the keeper on the bounce from Justin Vidic for his first goal for the club. Wellington kind of caught out on the break again with that high line. Could be a problem for them this season, but they came back again just like they did last week, and this time to win rather than draw. Eze putting himself about again, 48, he's looking strong, he's looking physical. And Nagasawa, who was decent for them last season, and I think he started this season well, had a good performance against Perth, got a well-deserved goal this time. Corbin Piper is another one of those young players who came through kind of last season before, and he's looking like he's going to be a big part of that defence and the team in general this time round. And then, of course, Armiento on target again, just like he was for the equaliser last week to get the winner this time. Fantastic finish on the angle. Crowded box sometimes, you don't know where the ball's going to go, but he just kind of hit it perfectly along the deck, and then late on Brisbane lose the match. Apart from that, I think Giancarlo Italiano, he's going to be thrilled with the resilience. 2 weeks in a row they've come back to draw and now to win. I think the one thing they're just going to have to really work on is just that high line and not getting caught out, because against attack-minded teams like Newcastle, and we created a lot of chances against Mariners as well. You guys, there's teams in this league who like creating goal-scoring opportunities. They could get caught out and potentially have a couple of heavy defeats if they don't. I know it's a new system version of they've gone from that counter-attacking football that got them to almost win the league a couple of seasons ago, of course, and then they lost a couple of players like Ben Old and stuff that suited it last season, and got pushed back, had a poor season. So they've changed the approach with different players in the squad now, and it's working from a sense that they've started the season well. But that high line is a concern because it's caught them out in the first half 2 weeks in a row against 2 teams who finished below them in the league last season. So they're yet to play a team who finished above them in the league last season. So we'll have to see how that goes when they have those games starting next week, of course, or this week, I should say. But yeah, overall, I just thought good solid win from Wellington, another great comeback from them. Brisbane look like they're going to have a good solid defensive unit, but again, I'm just not convinced if they're all there in attack this season. I do think Valkanis is going to get a lot more out of them because he's definitely a better manager than Zadkovic. It's just, similar to St. Pauli in the Bundesliga. Do they have enough in attack, this Brisbane side, to win enough games to challenge for that top 6, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I actually watched this one live yesterday, and after that first raw goal, I actually thought that they might go on and finish it. So, my thoughts, certainly Eze was a real presence for Wellington, but was actually quite lucky not to see a red card on the hour mark. He had a bit of heavy marking applied his way and retaliated a little bit, so only a yellow luckily for him, but Bizanis made a really good save not long after that. But Carlos Armiento had a really good game. Actually, once the leveler sort of came up with about sort of 15 to play, I actually thought, the game's probably heading for a draw. The Yellow Fever actually thought that they'd taken the lead again, but the shot from Armiento actually hit the side netting.
I thought that went in as well when I was watching back.
So did I. But yeah, they that was sort of when Phoenix really put the foot down and had the majority of the attacks, and it was really that they needed a hero, and Armiento, as you just mentioned, stepped up, and it was actually a really great finish. Nice left foot shot, sort of coming into the right edge of the box. He beat Jordan Lawton and also Bouzanis. Bouzanis may not have had the best view of it, but we talked about the I guess the fortunes of both managers. I mean, Giancarlo Italiano, as you said, he'd be really happy with the resilience of the side coming back last week and obviously coming back again this week. Michael Valkanis, I figured he'd be really disappointed. I mentioned just before, I thought maybe he would have thought that after they took the lead, they might have gone on and had 2 wins from 2 games. Not to be, but I think giving up a point so late, like really late, with not much time left, would be really disappointing in what was probably otherwise for them a really good effort. But I guess they got found out later on once the heat came on from the Phoenix attacking players, and eventually they got their reward.
Yeah. Well, they'll be back at the old Cake Tin in a few weeks' time, of course. There's a massive game against Auckland, their next home game in a couple of weeks' time. Funnily enough, on the same day, we got the Melbourne Derby, but that's in 2 weeks' time. Next week, we've gone through some Bundesliga games, of course, already for next week. Just going through a couple of notable fixtures, of course, I guess, for next week. First game of the round next week on Friday, so Halloween. We got a double header on Halloween. We got Brisbane City at Suncorp, I'm assuming. We never know with Brisbane these days. And then Perth Melbourne Victory over in Perth later on. We'll have a special. No, we won't. Sorry, what am I talking about? No, forget what I was about to say. I thought we were going to do a watch along for that. Sorry, those of you who got excited. We're not doing a watch along with that game, so forget what I was about to say. We've got Auckland Adelaide as a first Saturday game, followed by my boys Sydney going up to Newcastle to take on a high-flying young gun Jets side. And then we got the Western Sydney Derby, not the Sydney Derby, and Macarthur Wanderers later that same night, which I'm watching that one as well, so I'm sure that's going to be a thrilling goalless draw, I reckon. And then Ben's going to watch the Sunday game with Mariners Wellington. So what, 3-3, 4-4? What are we thinking? Because you're watching it.
I think the Mariners at home are a different prospect, and I guess it depends on how well Wellington travel. I mean, every sort of away game for them is quite a distance to travel. So can they get something out of another away trip? Whereas the Mariners will have their home support fiercely behind them. Can they get a good result? But I guess probably the game I'm looking forward to, aside from City hopefully making it 3 on the run, is certainly that Jets Sydney game. Can the Jets continue on their form from the other night, which I thought was really impressive, given the fact that, as I said, they've been in the wilderness for a number of years and sort of not done a whole lot. But also can Sydney continue that form as well? I think it's going to be a really great contest. Also the game tonight to kick off the new round. Macarthur at home to Adelaide.
Well, that's still part of this
Adelaide
round.
Find form. I think it's actually, having a look at the fixture, it's actually listed as week 3, so it is actually.
Of course,
I think according to that,
it's
the weird sort of format of the competition.
So according to the A-League, Macarthur and Adelaide are playing 2 games in the same week. Okay, fair enough. We don't question it sometimes with this stuff, but that wraps up another week of Bundesliga and A-League game week reviews. Not as many big games in terms of what the game means this week. We're going to have some crackers, especially in the Bundesliga next week, as we've already touched on. I hope you guys have enjoyed another week of action. We'll be back. It'll be another Friday episode, in fact, this week, not Thursday. I promise we'll get on the Thursday schedule soon enough. But it will be another Friday episode, and there's a reason for that. Friday is Halloween. Ben is coming. Me and Ben Ben is gonna come here to my place, and we're gonna basically bring you an episode with both of us in the same camera frame. Kind of like a practice thing as well in the lead up to the watch along for the Ashes, which is happening in less than a month as well. Now we'll be doing that. So it'll be your normal tea room. That's a very English way of calling it.
Tea room. Yeah. Like a tea room as well.
Yes, my dear sir, we will have our normal, for you lovely audience members, we will have our usual tea room episode. Scones and jam and cream will be provided, and your choice of English breakfast. I mean, that's the only one we will ever recommend. No
No,
sugar, just the
no Earl
one milk,
Grey, just
please.
English
Two if you
breakfast. Yeah.
must.
Uh-huh.
Yes, so we will be doing the tea room on Friday here presently at 12:30 sharp. It's not live, but please be sure to catch it on your way to work or what have you. No, so yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back on Friday with the next tea break episode. That's the right one, Chester. Where we're gonna have a couple of quizzes for each other. So look forward to that one. I won't say what they are. You'll find out on Friday. But we're going to do our first quiz episode on Friday, so that should be fun. Which one of us is going to outsmart the other, essentially? And we promise to make them difficult for each other, so it should be interesting, that one. So yeah, we'll be back on Friday with that. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you have, or just do it anyway. What the heck? Why not? So yeah, just before we wrap up, Ben, any closing thoughts from you over this week, or just in general?
Oh, look, just great to see another great great early round of the A-League. Some really good games in there, and certainly from a Bundesliga perspective, some really good results. Some more surprising than others, but and some less surprising. But great to catch up again for another in-depth review, and looking forward to the tea break / room on Friday. So really looking forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll be back with the next episode on Friday. We will be on the Thursday schedule from next week onwards, so trust me. Okay. Take care, guys. Enjoy. Hope you had a good time enjoying this. Whatever. Just take care, enjoy, and see you guys.
All
Bye.
the best, guys. Take care.
Bye.